சங்கர் IAS அகாடமி 19 ஆண்டுகள் பயணத்தில் 2200க்கும் மேற்பட்ட IAS IPS மற்றும் குடிமைப்பணி தேர்வாளர்கள். உங்கள் IAS IPS கனவை நிஜமாக்க உடனே 7667766266 என்ற எண்ணிற்கு கால் செய்யவும்.
உலக முதலீட்டாளர் மாநாட்டில் ரிசர்வ் வங்கியின் முன்னாள் ஆளுநரும் தமிழக முதலமைச்சரின் பொருளாதார ஆலோசனைக் குழு உறுப்பினருமான ரகுராம் ராஜன், மத்திய அரசின் முன்னாள் தலைமை பொருளாதார ஆலோசகர் அரவிந்த் சுப்பிரமணியம் ஆகியோர் கலந்துரையாடுகின்றனர். பார்க்கலாம் நேரலையில்.
Because it could not operate factories at scale. 30,000, Foxconn for example, it employs 150, 200,000 people. And India, if you looked at India, 500, the big ones would be 2,000, 2,500. But now, some of the factories that are being set up in Tamil Nadu are actually 20, 30,000 size factories, which is unprecedented. So if you, and I'm going to stop now, so if you combine that opportunity with what Tamil Nadu itself is doing in terms of beginning to operate at scale, the prospect of actually going from 4% of global exports, India will never go to 25, but 4% to 12%, 15%, that's a huge amount. Because remember, we're talking about 4% of something like $10, $15 trillion, and you can really, and that's the sense in which this kind of goal that Tamil Nadu has set for itself. Probably a bit ambitious, but I think definitely something that it can aspire to.
Goals should be ambitious. Yeah. You're good about that. Dr. Rajan, you've been arguing through your book that you co-authored with Rohit Lamba, against, I won't say against, but that a policy tilt towards manufacturing subsidies or incentives, especially low value add manufacturing, the kind of assembly work that India is currently doing, is not the best solution to our problems. But Tamil Nadu runs counter to that, right? Because most of those phone factories are here. They're generating employment for women.
So, let me be very clear about what I'm saying.
Sure, please.
I'm saying don't over-subsidize manufacturing and think that's the only path to growth. And what we heard from the presentation so far have been, look, services is also a big part of the growth story. And let's not treat services as a stepchild, less valuable, less amenable to low-skilled jobs. Think about tourism in this state. How many jobs can be created through the tourism industry? That's what we heard in the presentation. So many opportunities to create low and semi-skilled jobs through that avenue. So that's important to remember. On Arvind's point, I'm a little more skeptical that we're going to see a whole lot of jobs, fleeing China in the non-strategic areas. Okay. All the textiles, this, that, etc. They'll move over time. But they're not strategic. And to that extent, the barriers to exporting from China are going to be much more limited than, for example, in some of the more strategic areas where barriers are emerging. China still has a lot of people to be employed. So it's still an attractive place. I was talking to some business people here. So we are competing. And Tamil Nadu is a very strong competitor. But we are competing with other emerging markets for that kind of low-skill business. Where we have an advantage in manufacturing is higher value-added manufacturing. And that's where all the industries of the future are coming. And so I'm very much for using the skills of the state, the tremendous number of engineers, for example, the fact that our GER ratio, number of people in higher education, at any point in time, it's north of Europe at this point in Tamil Nadu. It's 27% in the United Kingdom. We have the capability of moving higher than that low-skilled manufacturing. By all means, don't discourage it, but be more ambitious on focusing on the higher end. When you're making, metals, focus on specialized metals. Because we have the engineering talent to do that kind of thing. So, again, bottom line, don't ignore the fact that we can do a lot of low-skill manufacturing. If that comes to our shores, great, and that will come. But if you want to be ambitious, focus on the higher end. And there's a lot of higher-end stuff that can be done given the quality of the education, given the growing quality of the infrastructure, given the government support with this ambitious target. And that's what I would also not ignore.
Okay. Dr. Rajan, I do want to say that I think this is a nuanced sort of shift away from the broad way your book has been interpreted. But I'll leave that aside for now. Can we get to the high value parts of this manufacturing chain without doing the low value parts, which Tamil Nadu is benefiting from right now through the assembly lines? What kind of high value bits are you talking about that would meet this requirement of big bets?
Well, so this goes back to, this is completely consistent with what I've been talking about, that higher value added in manufacturing services are coming together. We saw earlier in the presentation today, Qualcomm is thinking of setting up design factories here. That's design operations here. That's an important aspect of chip manufacturing, the chip design that goes in. In fact, Qualcomm doesn't make any chips. It's all made in Taiwan. But Qualcomm does the design. Manufacturing and services are coming together in a really, really interesting way. Take electric vehicles. 40 million lines of code written for Tesla. That's a big part of Tesla's value, right? So manufacturing services coming together, Tamil Nadu has the benefit of being able to do both. That's great. Your question, do you have to go to the low end in order to do the high end? No evidence that you need to do that.
Okay.
Take Apple. Apple hasn't manufactured a product since 2004.
Sure, but how do you generate the jobs then, Dr. Rajan? Which you need at every part of the value chain.
I would say
right?
you can, that's the point.
Yeah.
Generate jobs wherever you can. Assembly jobs are going to be an important factor because we have the capability, we have the workforce that can do those jobs. Those women we talked about,
right.
Important part of assembly in many countries, including in Tamil Nadu. So do it where you can. Second, we've got the opportunity to go higher end with the engineering talent we have, with the fact that, we talked about GCCs coming to Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has 10% of the GCCs in India, which is 40% of the GCCs in the world. These are global capability centers. That's another example of where Tamil Nadu has an advantage. So don't necessarily just focus on the lower end and say, I need just those jobs. You can generate those jobs, but you can also generate those jobs outside of manufacturing. For example, the tourism part that we talked about. But also, the higher end is where the value added truly is. That's where we're talking about innovation. That's where we're talking about creativity. One example, in Chennai, IIT Chennai, we have a gentleman who's trying to set rockets into space. This is a firm called Agnikul. They've got a bunch of young people coming together to design the rocket. They're taking the help of ISRO. They've started some early phase launches. But what is important really is, this is a product which is entirely manufactured by three. So what this suggests is there are lots of options in Tamil Nadu. You don't just have to go to the low-skilled assembly. That is one option, but there's a lot of other options.
I think we should make this a conversation about Raghu and me talking about manufacturing and services. We should talk about Tamil Nadu, what Tamil Nadu can do.
$1 trillion இலக்கை எட்டுவது என்பது சாத்தியமானது, ஆனால் சவாலானது என்று மத்திய அரசின் முன்னாள் தலைமை பொருளாதார ஆலோசகர் அரவிந்த் சுப்பிரமணியன் கூறிய பொழுது அதற்கு பதிலளித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய ரகுராம் ராஜன், நமது தொழில்துறையின் வளர்ச்சியை நடுத்தர அளவிலிருந்து மிக உயர்ந்த ஒரு அளவிற்கு உயர்த்தும் பொழுது அதை சாத்தியமாக்க முடியும். அதற்கான மனித சக்தியும் அதற்கான தொழில்துறையும் அதற்கான அனைத்து வளங்களும் தமிழகத்தில் இருக்கின்றன. உயர்ந்த இலக்கை அடையும் பொழுது, உயர்ந்த அளவிலான ஒரு தொழில்நுட்பத்தை நாம் கையாளும் பொழுது அந்த இலக்கை மிக எளிதில் அடைய முடியும் என்று ரகுராம் ராஜன் கூறி வருகிறார்.
சங்கர் IAS அகாடமி 19 ஆண்டுகள் பயணத்தில் 2200க்கும் மேற்பட்ட IAS IPS மற்றும் குடிமைப்பணி தேர்வாளர்கள். உங்கள் IAS IPS கனவை நிஜமாக்க உடனே
7667766266
என்ற எண்ணிற்கு கால் செய்யவும்.